listening to the Non-Del Influencers Podcast, brought to you by FirstFunding. Join host Matt Coles as he delivers powerful conversations to help non-delegated lenders succeed and scale in today's market.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the latest episode of Non-Del Influencers. Thanks for taking the time. Today, I am super excited. I have my dear friend, Erin Dee, Chief Operating Officer of InterLinc Mortgage Services. Erin, thank you for taking the time today. Really appreciate you. You have been in that seat now for how long now, in that Chief Operating CEO role over there?
So the COO of InterLinc, I've been here right at a year. This month was my 1-year anniversary.
Congratulations. And I want to dive right in because you and I met, geez, probably a decade ago. And I always get a smile on my face when I think about the program where we met, which is MBA Future Leaders.
Yeah.
And, looking back at it, if you remember, like the first time we all got together, it was pretty silly, like little team building games. And you and I were looking at each other like, is this really what we're going to be doing? And it got progressively more challenging as we went through. But, looking back 10 years ago, what made you decide to want to do that? What has that led to? Just share it with everybody what that meant to you in your career.
Yeah. So Future Leaders, to me, my journey began when I was working at Lock Desk for Sente Mortgage in Austin, Texas. And Jody Morgan, who was my city rep, was in there trying to convince my boss at the time to go through Future Leaders. And she convinced me instead. I was like, man, I really need to do that. So in Texas, through the Texas MBA, we have a scholarship where we'll send 4 students from Texas every year through the program. And so a couple of years later, when I kind of felt a little more comfortable with my experience, I applied, got the scholarship, and went. And so for me, I got to see a really long history of people from Texas MBA, who were the people I really looked up to, had all gone through that program. And so for me, it was a massive honor to earn the scholarship. It was a massive honor to kind of be able to follow in those footsteps and hopefully inspire people behind me that were coming up as well to go through the program.
And when you look back 10 years from now, and I know we stay in touch. You still stay in touch with quite a few people from that class that we were in. What's 10 years looking back? Now you get the full vision of it. How impactful do you think it has been on your entire career?
I tell people this all the time. It is probably one of the most impactful things that I ever did. Obviously the networking was amazing. You guys, the friends that I made through that, you and Darlene and just everybody, John, Mimi, I love all of you guys so much. And we've all been able to help each other grow through our careers. We've been resources to each other. Every time we see each other, it's always just a really nice homecoming. But even on top of that, just going through the program, learning how to deal with conflict. I used to joke with Jeff Schumer that I was pretty confident they put the groups together with intentionally trying to create conflict because there was conflict, and just trying to figure out how to work through that. Right, you're here with these people that, it's not school. We're all kind of there on a voluntary basis, but we all had something to get out of it. And so to be able to work through this really challenging project as a team together and have to count on each other, right? At the time, there were parts of our project that were outside of my expertise or your expertise. And so you really do have to kind of rely on these other people. And I've just got so much out of that. And that has really, worked for me over the last 10 years in working through work projects.
Yeah, for me, I always look back at it and I, especially that first week that we were together. And I remember sitting there and, at that time I was on the sales side, pretty successful in sales, still on the sales side, pretty successful in sales. And I remember walking into the room, I think there was 35, 40 of us in there.
Yeah.
And I was kind of eyes wide open for the first time about how many different roles there are in our industry. That was one of the main things.
Yeah.
And then my ego kicked in and we were working on the small teams. And I'm like, I can't believe these people are trying to solve this problem like this. Move out of the way. I didn't know the answer. And then there's, on my team, I look back, on my team was, a lawyer, a very successful real estate lawyer, some MI people, like really, really experienced people. And it was just one of those things where I'm like, okay, now that I look back at it, the relationships probably matter the most today, looking back 10 years.
Yeah.
But really, for me, that was a really impactful shift into the way I managed, right? I saw the way that other people tried to solve problems, and I realized very quickly, like, there's a million different ways to skin something. But just coming back to it, I just said, okay, I understand now that there's a lot of different ways to look at the same problem. And so super impactful. And I know you probably do the same. I encourage anyone that wants to do it. It's not cheap. It's not inexpensive, and it is a time commitment. But I always said, if you're willing to bet on yourself, it definitely is very, very impactful and will pay off in big dividends.
Yeah, absolutely. I have yet to meet a person who's gone through the program who said they regretted it. They wish they hadn't done it. It was a waste. I mean, everyone comes away with something different, even if it's losing your main character energy, which sounds like was one of your takeaways.
Yeah. Well, that kind of shifted, I'm so I admire you so much for what you're taking on right now with the TMBA.
Thank you.
And I look at someone like you and I go, you're incredibly successful in your job that pays you, that you get a paycheck, which is important in our life, right?
Yeah.
But here you are, my dear friend, you are now the TMBA president, and it's a volunteer gig. Yes. Right? Talk to me a little bit about your career. Why are you so involved in the TMBA, and why do you think it's so important? And what was the original ask, and how did you get to the place where you are now the president of the TMBA?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you very much. That's super cool. I have such huge respect for you and everything you've done in your career, so it really does mean a lot. So thank you very much. So I first moved to Texas 15 years ago. I moved from Florida, and I literally had what I could put on my back, right? I had my clothes and my shoes, which shoes are important, but that was it. What I could fit in my car, right? And so I didn't know anybody. I had nothing. And so getting involved in Texas MBA, and even at the local level at Austin MBA, but then moving up to Texas MBA, for me was a way to really get to know people, to meet people that were also in the business. My career prior had been focused mainly on subprime. So I was also kind of shifting my focus away from the subprime world. I was working in capital markets at the time. So expanding my network, getting to know people. And then from there, it really just became an opportunity for me to learn. I saw all of the educational opportunities. I was able to learn things outside of my role that I never would have been able to learn. This was a time when Dodd-Frank was first coming through, and we had LO Comp, and we had TRID and ATR QM. And there was just constant learning opportunities that the association made available to us. And so for me, then it just became an opportunity to continue to learn. But then once I got to a point where I learned, I knew a lot, I could then give back and learn, and I could participate on committees. And instead of going to a conference and saying, I didn't like the way we did this, or we should have done this, I could be on a committee and then eventually grow and lead the committee, so that you're really able to say, this is how I think things should be, and make it happen, and just give back to the industry. This industry has done so much for all of us. It gives us, to your point, careers. The thing I love about mortgage is you can come into it with a GED. And if you're really great at what you do, you can find a job that can let you earn more money than a doctor. And what we do for our communities, what we can do for our families, is amazing. And so I just wanted a way to give back. And I just found a way to do that through Texas MBA and everything that we do within the association.
Yeah. And one of the things that I always said, especially when I was in my previous role, I would talk to, originators, right? And they would grouse about this or that, or say this, cost of credit report sucks, or trigger lead sucks, whatever it could be, right? Or is that there was something always new to grouse about. I said, well, you have a voice, right? Sure. I mean, it's so simple. Something simple like taking action with the Mortgage Action Alliance. I mean, they make it so simple for you. And I know that you have done this before too, going to Washington and getting in front of Congress people and senators.
Yes.
They listen, right? Because we are a very big part of the entire United States economy. They do tend to listen to us. And I love the fact that you felt like, hey, if I want to have a voice, your voice from here is not going to hit Washington, D.C. Your voice from here is not going to hit Sacramento or Texas or whatever it might be. But if you come together and support the local organizations that are in your industry, you definitely have a louder voice. And I love that you've taken action on that.
Yeah, thank you. And I will say, to your point, MBA and what they do with MA is phenomenal. It's free. It's so easy to do it. You should do it, especially when we do have the trigger lead legislation, things like that coming out. And the thing that kind of surprises me the most is you have more PAC, and in Austin or in Texas, we also have a Texas MBA PAC. Is we use that money to be able to get in front of legislators and kill bad bills or help good bills pass or influence bills that are bad to become good. And even sometimes, getting people to contribute $20 is a struggle. And I don't get it, because this affects what you do every day. You should invest. You're investing literally in your own future by doing this. And so, if you have the means, definitely, through more PAC, or if your state has a PAC, it's something you should be contributing to.
So one of the things that is probably top of your list, right? Because you were pretty young when you got into the industry. What are we doing?
What are you talking about?
What are we getting the younger people to do into the business? So what is how is the TMBA, and maybe even on a broader scale, what are we doing to support younger people coming into the business?
Yeah, so there's a few ways. So Texas specifically, we have a few different routes for that. We have an aspiring mortgage bankers committee.
Oh, nice.
And what that really does is focuses on, one, getting around to the local areas, right? I think in Texas, we do this especially well, I'll say, and I know there's a lot of other states that do, is local associations. So we go to their monthly meetings, and you find the people who were like me 15 years ago, just trying to get involved, or just going to a luncheon to hear a really great economist speak or something like that. And let them know, hey, you can get involved in the state level. Here's the educational opportunities that you have. So we're doing that. We are also partnering. Last year, we partnered with a college in Texas to provide financial literacy education and to teach people about the mortgage banking industry, right? They say nobody intentionally gets in, right? We need to start getting people to intentionally get in. And so we're doing that. We also offer monthly training webinars. In June, we are doing a USDA training. It's completely free, right? So people who are just coming in and trying to understand what is a USDA loan and how do I originate it, we're offering that for them. Nice. And then, we have that Future Leader Scholarship. We also have our own program called the Certified Mortgage Leader, which is, again, kind of aimed at that aspiring mortgage banker to get in. And it's a state level year-long program where you have teams, you do projects, you have different sessions. So lots of different ways we're really trying to encourage excitement.
I love it. I mean, I've been in this business since college, right? I mean, my first job was a custodian inside of a broker's office.
That's awesome.
And so I always think about like the opportunities that, I mean, really this career has given me the opportunity to travel the United States, right?
Yes,
and
exactly.
I have a couple of young guys on my team. I have a really young sales team. And I say, listen, there's nothing wrong with going out in the field and hitting a bunch of accounts and going to see it, and then burning the midnight oil. And there's a lot of conferences that we've had a lot of fun together at, right? And so there is opportunity for a really exciting, cool career in the mortgage business, right? And when you're young, it could be a blast. You get to meet some great people, make lifelong friends. I absolutely adore what you guys are doing over there at TMBA.
Yeah. Thank you. And even without TMBA, I mean, I know you kind of said what else is out there. If you look at our MI companies that are out there, they have so much amazing training that's available for free, that it's everything from how to take a 1003 to advanced income calculation, and how to talk to and prospect and follow up on leads. And, that's the great thing about this industry too, to your point, is there's so many people that want to share their knowledge, that be it, hey, you go find somebody who is in a job that you eventually want to have, I guarantee you they would be willing to at least informally mentor or help you out. Or there's all kinds of training classes. All you have to do is want it. I mean, I say I built my career by finding a need and filling it. And how I did that was sometimes, when people were off at the bars or whatever, I was back at home figuring out how to code Encompass or reading guidelines, right? And so this industry gives you exactly what you put into it, and that's beautiful.
Oh, if you know how to code Encompass, I need your help on something, please.
We can talk afterwards. I have an hourly rate.
All right. So you took on a new role, CEO. You opened up the hood, right? Obviously, you're a new person coming in, whatever the path was for you to get there. You opened up the hood of the company. What did you see that you liked?
So it was very different. To your point, my prior role as a chief operating officer was at a de novo. We started the company from scratch, right? So I knew the ins, outs, how everything worked. I had it working how I wanted it to work. So now to come to a company that's been around since 2009, it was a lot different. To your point, I did have to kind of find out where the bodies were buried and what's in the written, policies and procedures, but what's in the actual, this is how we practice.
We make it work rules.
Correct. Exactly. Right. And so the one thing I absolutely loved about this company that just, there's two things really. One is we're a smaller organization. We're at $1 billion, right? But we've got all the toys of the big boys. I'm Fannie, Freddie, Ginnie. We have an advanced capital market. We have all kinds of products, right? So we can do all the things that big boys do, but at our size, it's able to be more boutique, and I've been able to really build and develop relationships with everyone.
Yeah.
The thing that really stood out to me is the tenure. There's people here that have been here since we started. There's people, we've had an underwriter that last week that just retired her career from here, right? You very rarely see that, right? It's awesome. I have never seen tenure like there is here at InterLinc, and it's because, the leadership, Gene, James, really, really focus on just building relationships and treating people like people. And in mortgage, I just feel like that's super rare.
I love that, because whenever I look at any company, I'm a big fan of tenure, right? I was at my last career for 14, 15 years.
Yeah.
When I came here, big move for me. And I looked at the people that I was going to be with, my boss, the leader of our organization, Nate, this is his first job out of college, right? So it's like, you just go and you look at who wants to be there, and we all have our daily struggles. And this is probably one of the biggest things I've been talking to a lot of people about, because I work with a lot of investors.
Yeah.
And account executives tend to move from place to place because they think the rate sheet's going to matter, right? This rates over here is going to be a little bit better. I would just say, you know what? I mean, if you just put your head down and try to fix things where you're at, it might actually end up paying dividends for you. And so let's fast forward. We've been here for a year. Let's fast forward 1 year from now. If I'm giving you an award, I'm up on stage and I'm giving you an award. Erin, congratulations on doing X in the last year. What is X? What are you really solely focused on in the next year to get to where you guys want to be growth-wise?
Yeah, so I think it's kind of an extenuation of what I've really been working on, and that's really fine-tuning our manufacturing process, getting rid of redundancies, adding efficiencies, adding some more technology. We kind of had some needs there. So really working on streamlining that manufacturing process. We got our days online down significantly from when I joined. And as you know, in the warehouse space, being able to turn my line quick is not just great because you want to be efficient, but it also shows this is the quality of your manufacturing, right? Yeah. And so modernizing and making sure that we're taking advantage of all those amazing tools that are out there for us, some for free. We just dove into that new Freddie Mac calculator, and it is fantastic and a time saver. So, just things like that.
What is that Freddie Mac calculator?
So Freddie Mac just put out, Fannie Mae has had one. Freddie Mac just put out their income calculator where you basically go in and it just tells you put this number from this line on your tax returns into here. But the cool thing about the Freddie Mac one that it has over Fannie is that you can put variable income in there. So if you have a scenario where your borrower has fluctuating or variable income, this will help you, and it'll also give you reps and warrants on the calculations. So
is it like a loan beam?
Not really, because it's not scanning the docs. You're entering it, right? So that's why you have reps and warrants on the calculations. But if you fat finger a number, you don't get your reps and warrants there.
No, that's pretty cool.
It's very cool, and you can tie it to your LPA key numbers, right? So it's very, very cool, and that's free. It's completely free to use. And so, obviously there's, we're using technology here to improve our manufacturing process, but when I can get it for free,
right. Yeah. Free is best. Free is
free
best.
is better. And then the other, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Just say, where were you finding the redundancy?
So a lot of it was in communication.
Right.
I think there was if you have everybody on an email, if everybody's accountable and nobody's accountable, right? So really,
you're talking my language right now. I mean, the emails change, the CCs of email change right now are insane in our industry.
Insane. Yes.
It's like not everyone at the organization needs to be on an email, right? And the traffic and so I'm really trying hard to coach to, if you have a question for me, you can either call me, because I do enjoy talking to people. Email is not an instant chat, call me and we can resolve it in 5 minutes, or direct it to me and put nobody else on the email, right? I don't need 17 different people CC'd on it. So I'm sure you probably deal with that on a daily basis yourself.
Absolutely. And that was honestly one of the first things that I came in and worked on. And it wasn't even necessarily like internally, there was some of that, but a lot of it was also externally, where for some reason our counterparties had been trained to email 42 departments if they needed something, right? So on a post-closing issue, an investor is emailing 87 people in the company, right? And so everybody's like, well, it's not, I don't know, right? So it was cleaning it up internally, but also making sure that our counterparties knew who they needed to communicate with so that they could get what they needed quickly. So it's amazing how much having only who you need on a communication can help.
How did you try to tackle that?
I mean, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? So I would basically, as I would see an email come through, because I got put on every single distro when I got in here. I'm like, I want to see how people communicate. I would just tackle it one at a time. I'm like, all right, hey, I need to see your contact list for us, because you're emailing all the wrong people, and just slowly but surely clean it up. And there's still a bit of it there. I have a couple of vendors that still insist on emailing the COO who was here two COOs ago for things. And I can't get them to update it, but it's literally, you just have to tackle it as it comes through. Because if you put it all aside or wait to try to do it in one fell swoop, it's just going to be impossible.
I'm so sorry that you had to go through that, but it warms my heart that this is not the organization. I'm not the only organization where 47 people get emailed on can someone please reset my password?
It is the worst.
Because
we probably all should be taken away.
46 people end up working on the same thing.
Correct.
So let's talk a little bit about, I know you're in the delegated space, and this is a non-del podcast, but talk to me a little bit about, you've done non-del in the past, I'm assuming, right? Yeah. And when you moved into the delegated space, what were the fear factors? What were the lessons learned? In today's world, we're seeing an explosive growth in the non-del space, right? Why take on that overhead? Rates are not cooperating so far this year. I don't need to tell you that. We all kind of expected a little bit of a rally, and hopefully we get one in the second half of 2025. But I think Chrisman said something today. What is it? Stay in the mix until 26 or something like that.
Oh, yes.
It was the same, because everyone started off in January like thrive in 2025, and now we're just stay alive. Let's just stay alive in 2025 again. So talk to me a little bit about the move, because we will see people move from the non-del space to the del space, and a lot of people do have that growth plan for their business. What were some of the lessons that were learned, and maybe some of the things that you would tell people to look out for?
So, for me, I think absolute number one, this should go without saying, is understand your own risk tolerance, right? When you're going non-del, you're on somebody else's risk tolerance. You can ask for exceptions, but it's all in their risk tolerance, right? So you have to understand what you're willing to accept, right? And it kind of goes back to your Fannie Mae QC. What is your, net target defect rate? What are you willing to withstand? And I think a lot of times when people go out on their own delegated, they think their risk tolerance is larger than it is, until they get that one that they can't, they can't sell. And then really honestly, like having somebody on staff who understands how to get loans sold I think is crucial too, because in this business, one, you have to understand how to underwrite a loan that can get purchased, but then you also have to understand where you have wiggle room and where you can fight. And that only comes from experience, right? Like sometimes you can get a post-purchase condition or a pre-purchase condition or suspense from an investor, and it sounds scary and it sounds like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I have a loan I can't sell. But if you have somebody who's savvy, who understands how to problem solve, you realize it can be fixed, right? So having that experience goes a long way in making sure that where you can have wiggle room, and you really also go back to QC, like you've got to have that robust QC plan in place. It's not just something that you put in place because you have to.
Yeah, like that's something you pay for and put in a drawer.
Correct. I mean, QC is a huge part of what I do day in and day out, be it from my QC vendor who's doing my posts and my pre-funding, right? It's my companies, it's my investor feedback, right? And having that feedback loop and having the ability to learn lessons and say, this came back wrong, we need to implement a better procedure, or we need to automate this, right? Or we need a better tool for this. I think to me, those are the three big ones when you're making that leap. Those are the three things that I would focus on.
Yeah, one of the things that we try to coach over here is if you do want to move to Dell, and we encourage you, right? We're very happy to be a warehouse provider for delegated lenders as well. Shadow underwrite for the first 15 files that you want to. Hire an underwriter, commit to the salary, and have them do an underwrite of 15 conventional, rate and term refis, right? And let's just make sure that their condition list matches up with the condition list that you get back from the investor, right? Because if you turn that switch on, and you just go blind into it, it gets messy really quick. And I just think some of the lessons that we can probably share to some of our lenders is just invest in it before you actually start to do it, right? And just learn about all the aspects of it. All right, well, we're coming up on our time here, but I would be remiss if we didn't talk about breakfast burritos.
Breakfast tacos, the best.
So Erin, you and I had probably one of the best burritos I've ever had in San Diego. I think it was Bub's or something. I think it was Bub's.
Something like that. It was like a taco stand or burrito stand.
The deli counter. And I remember sitting there. It was early. And I don't know, I think our eyes were both a little bloodshot. And I remember being in San Diego with you, and I don't think I've ever laughed so hard in my life because we saw all these healthy people running at like 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. And you and I are just going pound town on a pastrami burrito.
So good.
And I said, I looked at you and you said, you know what? We would both be so healthy if we lived in San Diego because we would run all the time. And I just...
But we don't, so we're not.
Yeah, exactly. So now when I do go to conferences when cities I've never been, right? I'm going to Atlanta next week. I do search out good places for breakfast burritos. It's part of my DNA now.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah. So when you go to a conference, you go to MBA secondary or wherever you might be, I'm sure you're going to be at a lot of them this year. What do you look for in a good burrito place?
Okay, well, a couple of things. So one, I'm in Texas, so like for me, it's a breakfast taco, but we're gonna go with your. So for me, you got to have enough protein in there, and it can't all be beans. So I need to have some sort of like really good like chicken and all that, and then the ingredients have to be spread properly. I don't want one bite that's like only guacamole, right? Right. I mean, so to me, and you got to have a great variety of hot sauces. If you don't have a lot of hot sauces for me to just dump on there, I'm out.
I needed a lot of hot sauce to immediately regret all my decisions in the morning for the rest of the day.
I got enough regret in my life.
nothing hits like a 9 a.m. heartburn.
It's the best. That's that mortgage life. See, for new people coming up. That's that mortgage life.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Erin, I can't thank you enough for your time. I can't wait to see your reign at TMBA, and you can count on FirstFunding to be an active participant this year. So thank you for everything. I really do appreciate your time.
Oh, it was good to see you, honey. Talk to you later.
All right, thank you.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning into the Non-Del Influencers podcast, powered by FirstFunding. For more resources and episodes, visit nondelinfluencers.com.